this world. Everyone will become the last animal they ate. Some people ate delicious duck and turned into mouse-flavored chip. Some ate braised chicken delivery and became a rap singing and dancing. Even more extreme, some ate sugar and instantly turned into a dinosaur, but you bit your own arm and directly transformed into a child. Because humans have recklessly, the Earth has issued a warning. In 24 hours, everyone will turn into the last animal they ate. If you remember correctly, the last thing you ate was fried chicken, a low-level animal which would be the first to be devoured. When the global transformation began, while you were worrying, your good friend Wang Qili came to find, but compared to your situation, he seemed even more troubled because the Earth's will only stated that you would become the last, but it didn't specify that it had to. And Wang Qili's family runs a few days ago. They discovered a T-Rex fossil in a mountain village. If you could eat it, you would become a dominant creature. Elephants and Siberian tigers would just be yours. So you and Wang Qili made a plan and drove to the village immediately. But upon reaching your destination, the fossil's guard, Boss Xie, changed his mind. Everyone could hear the Earth's will, including Boss Xie. Upon learning about the global transformation, he immediately ordered the T-Rex fossil to be secured. Boss Xie sneered and said, "Forget about the T-Rex fossil. I've prepared something else for you." Then he brought out a fish tank. Inside was a green turtle. Then you were locked in a wood. Looking at the tightly sealed door, Wang Qili immediately felt. But fortunately, the last thing he ate last night was a snap. Though still a turtle, a snapping turtle can grow up to 2. Its defense and attack capabilities are quite remarkable. When you opened your backpack, you found only a pack of instant noodles and a sausage. If you chose the seasoning packet, you could become a. If you chose the sausage, you could be. But both were low combat creatures. Fortunately, you thought, at least you could rely on your friend. But then it occurred to you, humans are also animals. What if you ate yourself? At worst, it might still be better than a cow. So in the final second of global transfer, you bit your own arm fiercely. Then the Earth's will caused all humans to fall unconscious. Their bodies twisted, reshaped into various animals. Notably, they didn't transform. Instead, they became juvenile form. They had to devour to evolve. When your good friend Wang Qili woke, he had indeed become a snapping turtle. But as he looked around, he didn't see you. Until he turned around and found an egg the size of a head behind him. The egg had faintly visible pattern and a shimmering glow. At the same time, you were stunned. You didn't expect that biting your would turn you into a dragon. Even as an egg, you could still see the outside world, and with 360-degree vision at that. While you were still in shock, you suddenly heard a system note. Congratulations, host, for becoming officially unlocking the Chinese dragon. Currently in the incubation duration. 10. Reading this, you chuckled. Truly worthy of being with true dragon blood flowing. Although the incubation will take, you can accelerate it through continuous hunting. At the same time, you also gained 2 innate skills. The first is Thunder Shield, which allows you to summon divine, inflicting large-scale destruction. The second is Dragon's Aura, as dragons naturally possess supreme, which suppresses most creatures. At this moment, your friend Wang asked you in shock what you had to avoid unnecessary trouble. You lied and said that last night you actually ate an ostrich. As you two were talking, a roar came from outside the door. As the shed door was flung open, a ferocious beast poked its head. It was none other than Bohai, who had transformed into a juvenile T-Rex. Although still a juvenile, he already had the height of an adult human. At this moment, he growled at Wang. "I've disliked your rich parents for a long. Today I'll enjoy turtle soup to strike." Then the villagers who had turned into surrounded you both. Although they outnumbered, when they saw the spiked turtle shell and the menacing face of the snapping turtle, they hesitated to attack. But under Boss Xi's intimidation, one large stray dog lunged forward. Seeing this, Wang Qili struck immediately, biting the opponent fiercely. With a painful howl, the villager's nose was instantly bitten off. You should know that the snapping can reach an astonishing 450 kills. At this moment, Boss Xi was furious. His minions couldn't even defeat a turtle, making him lose face completely. So he directly swallowed the injured stray dog. Then Boss Xi roared at the sky, decided such a bloody scene made the surrounding villagers tremble with their tail. Wang Qili wasn't much better off either. It seemed that at this you had to take matters into, so you immediately calmed down and began to sense the rules of heaven. At that moment, above the once clear sky suddenly turned dark as Boss Xi crouched down, preparing to bite Wang Qili. You shouted, "Thunder Shield!" And from the heavily clouded sky above, a bolt of lightning suddenly. Countless animals were struck, falling dead on the spot. At the center of the lightning, you were protected by the dragon's aura and remained unharmed. But Boss Xie wasn't so lucky. With a scream of agony, his skin and flesh exploded. The once robust body was now torn to shreds. White brain matter spilled all. Congratulations for hunting 25 fawning dogs, earning 25, and hunting one ancient T-Rex, earning 100. You never expected the power of Thunder Shield to be so. You thought it was single target damage, but it turned out to be area-wide, and its overwhelming power far exceeded your expectations. At this rate, you could completely hatch within a year. Since this was your first hunt, the system also rewarded you with a talent. After a quick spin, the point landed on a talent called Dragon's Fury. Although you didn't know what this skill did, judging by the spiritual energy and its grand name, it probably wasn't weak. Originally, you planned to find a secluded place with Wang Qili and emerge to dominate after hatch, but now it seems you need to change your approach, and that is to kill as many. So Wang Qili carried you and walked, but as you passed through some grass, a palm-sized mouse suddenly appeared, seemingly foraging at night. Wang Qili, eager to evolve, opened his mouth wide and swallowed the mouse whole. Immediately, in Wang Qili's mind, an evolution point appeared, which could be used to upgrade his evolution. This thrilled Wang Qili. If he weren't a turtle, he'd probably be dancing with excitement. Following your analysis, Wang Qili allocated the evolution point. Since snapping turtles already have strong, there was no need to enhance, but their juvenile shells weren't very tough, so defense was the best choice. As the evolution point was used, the shell emitted a cracking sound and visibly thickened. Afterward, the two continued. After 3 days of trekking, you finally saw again the bright and bustling lights of the city. You thought that after humans, such things would disappear, but they still remained, as if a continuation of human civilization. However, as you approached the gate, you were blocked by a group of fierce dogs. Wang Qili immediately opened his mouth wide to intimidate these uninvited guests. Fortunately, these dogs weren't hot. After a brief conversation, you learned they were from the fierce dogs gang. While Wang Qili negotiated with them, you observed the gang. They seemed to have all reached maturity. Indeed, it was easier to evolve due to the high population density. The Fierce Dogs gang explained that to enter, you had to pay a protection fee. It turned out that on the second day, someone discovered that evolution points could be direct. This meant that, aside from it could also make others obedient. However, the main source of evolution still came from killing, except for herbivorous, because they obtained evolution points by eating plants. So a large number of herbivores were enslaved by carnivores and constantly had their blood extracted to avoid unnecessary trouble. You eventually handed over 8 and were allowed to pass, but you had already decided once you got into the Fierce Dogs gang's territory, you would find to lure all these dogs near you and unleash Thunder Shield. After entering the city, you looked at the scene before you in complete astonishment. It was as if you had, although not perfectly orderly, it wasn't chaotic either. The streets were filled with including many fierce dogs patrol. They seemed to have become enforcers, maintaining the order of the city. While you were still in shock, a pure white rabbit suddenly hopped next to Wang Qili, scaring him into almost retreating. The rabbit introduced itself as Xia and offered to help you as first time, but its cunning eyes didn't escape your notice. However, you chose not to, wanting to see what it was. Under Xia Qingqing's, you followed it to its home. As you walked, Wang Qili started noticing you were getting farther from gradually, and Xia Qingqing explained that they didn't have much say in the city, so they lived in more remote areas. Under its guidance, you eventually arrived at a shack where Xia Qingqing's parents welcomed you warmly. Xia Qingqing's parents were very and quickly prepared dinner. They served some grass on their plates, while giving Wang Qili a piece of. As for you, they completely. However, as time passed, Wang Qili started feeling drowsy and eventually fell unconscious. It turned out the pork had been tampered with, intended to lure Wang Qili in. Their real target was you. If they handed you over to the fierce dog, they would gain the right to leave the city free. However, you had already seen through. This was a case of a blessing in disguise, making things easier for you. All you needed was to reach the gang and unleash Thunder Shield to wipe them out entirely. Soon enough, you were taken to the leader of the Fierce Dogs gang. Using your awareness, you identified him as a cane corso dog. Though still in its growth, he was even larger than a fully grown cane corso. Black Dog was a professional boxer in the past, but due to injuries from fight, he had been hospitalized, and when the transformation occurred, a miracle happened. All his previous wounds healed, though he became a dog. Being a cane corso wasn't a bad. Using his combat instincts, he easily defeated all and eventually became the Black Dog. At this moment, he licked his, even though he had already eaten dinner. Seeing the egg before him, he felt he could still eat. Eagerly, he opened his mouth, ready to devour it whole. But in the next instant, a powerful aura burst from the egg. The Black Dog King was and pinned to the. A powerful aura erupted from the egg. The Black Dog King was instantly and was directly pinned. Then your voice rang out like a bell. Bow down, insignificant creature. With just a few words, the Black Dog King suffered into the bones in his body creaked as they rubbed. Meanwhile, the subordinates outside approached the scene, only to be immediately pinned to the. You spoke again, commanding the Black Dog King at the location. Although he was the leader of the fierce, he struggled against the pressure, trying to muster a sense of. But you immediately unleashed of your dragon's aura once again, forcing the Black Dog King into complete. He felt his will. On the verge of collapse, with all the members of the Fierce Dogs gang, you withdrew your aura. The Black Dog King looked utterly and fearfully asked what you intended to do with them. Originally, you had planned, but you changed your mind, realizing that the Fierce had evolved so rapidly in just a few days. Thanks to the help of herbivorous who they exploited for evolution points, you decided you could turn over all their evolution points to you. With this approach, your incubation process would accelerate significantly. You gave them an ultimatum. Either submit to you or face annihilation. Having witnessed your terrifying power, they chose submission without hesitation. The Black Dog King even handed over all his to you. This instantly reduced your incubation from 10,000 years to 9,800. Since this was your first time using evolution, you received another talent spin, and so you unlocked a talent called Spiritual Energy. This talent allowed you generate 100 evolution points daily. In other words, you could now completely distance yourself from the city and hatch successfully in 2 to 3 years with absolutely no risk. However, in this era, the world's dynamics were changing rapidly You couldn't afford to wait. You then officially renamed the Fierce Dogs gang and kept all its operations under the control of the Black Dog King. Hearing this, the Black Dog King's eyes brightened again. Your actions immediately earned his complete. He called you boss on the spot. Through the Black Dog King's account, you finally understood the city's situation. It turned the city was divided into 3 factions, with your dragon dynasty being one of them. The others were the Cat Gang, led by May, and the Rat Gang, led by the Rat. This made you speechless. Someone actually chose to eat, but the Rat King was truly ruthless. While everyone else sought larger, he deliberately chose a rat. Because throughout history, rats thrived in the harshest and always found a way to survive comfortably. So at the last moment, he swallowed a rat despite his and after transforming, immediately led the rat to seize control of the city's. As you pondered how to deal with the Cat Gang and Rat Gang, a former military strategist of the Fierce, it turned out to be a husky. And his plan was simple: lure the cats and rats and burn them all alive. Looking at the Huskies' you immediately pointed out how would you lure them into the trap. Without a sufficiently enticing bait, the plan would remain theoretical and completely ineffective. It wouldn't achieve anything at all. It wouldn't be effective at all. But then you had a thought: what could be a more enticing bait than yourself? To test your theory, you stopped concealing your aura and radiated a dazzling light, which instantly caused the surroundings to drool with desire. Wasn't this the perfect bait? However, while discussing your next move, your good friend Wang Chili was brought in by some. It turned out that Wang Chili woke up and found you missing from panicked. He immediately surrounded the rabbit family and under intense question learned that you had been taken to the field. This realization filled Wang Chili with, if it weren't for his gluttony, this wouldn't have happened. He then forced Chechingching to lead him to your location. Upon seeing you again, he ran over excitedly, but was also shocked. How had you, as just an egg, become the leader of the Fierce Dog? Thinking back to the Thunder Shield event, he seemed to understand. You were delighted by Wang Chili's. This was true brother. Even knowing the dangers of he still came to find you. After briefly explaining the situation, he immediately suggested using thunder with unbridled, but you simply smiled and said you had a better plan. After all, Thunder Shield. Soon on the 3rd day, a sensational began spreading through the city. It was said that the leader had acquired a glowing egg. This egg radiated a dazzle. The leader of the Fierce Dogs. The egg shimmered brilliantly with radiance and looked nothing like an Many speculated that it was likely a dragon egg. If consumed by a regular, it could grant them dragon. The news once spread caused a massive uproar. All factions began making moves, taking action one after. Meanwhile, the Rat Gang and Cat Gang, upon learning of the dragon eggs, started devising their own plan. Since consuming it could grant However, due to the Fierce Dog, the 2 gangs decided to collaborate and attempt to seize the egg. Their plan was straightforward. The Cat Gang would draw attention, while the Rat Gang would sneak in through the sewers But what they didn't know was you had already set a trap, waiting for them to fall into it. Meanwhile, on your side, you spent the past few days, but every day, the Black Dog would deliver the collected evolution. Of course, you didn't take all of them. You only took 80% because the Black Dog, otherwise, he couldn't maintain control. And it wasn't just him. Even the former Fierce Dogs members and the enslaved herbivores were allowed to keep a portion of the evolution to enhance their own strength. Herbivores that reached maturity earned even more evolution points daily, so why wouldn't they agree to this? This time, the black dog brought in a daily batch of evolution points, but to your surprise, the quantity delivered was twice as much as it turned out that after many herbivores from other factions secretly defected to the dragon dynasty, although they would still face exploitation, at least they could keep a small portion. With such an incentive, the number of herbivores on dragon increased significantly, which also meant a corresponding rise. After understanding the situation, you instructed the Black Dog King, telling him not to restrict their and allow the herbivores as much freedom. This would prevent potential uprising. However, if someone called, it was necessary to maintain order and deterrent. After the Black Dog King, you looked at the newly delivered evolution and without hesitation used half of them to speed up your eggs hatch. As for the rest, you chose to, after all, aside from hatching, talent was your only means to enhance your power. As the talent wheel began spinning, the pointer rotated rapidly. Finally, it stopped on a talent called Dragon Soul Pact. This talent allowed the host to establish a master-servant contract of lower bloodline. The contracted creatures would be unable to break. Seeing such a powerful talent, you almost shouted in excitement. While you possessed various powerful skills, you were still just an egg. So before you successfully hatched, you needed to establish a trustworthy. Up to this point, only Wang Qili had earned your trust. You didn't trust any of the they had only submitted and would likely betray you. This newly acquired talent was exactly what you to solve this pressing issue. As morning arrived, Dragon Dynasty was met with the cat boss arrived with his marching aggressively to the gates before they could even make a scene. The fierce dogs already appeared from all directions. Dogs suddenly appeared from all directions, like divine soldiers descending. They immediately surrounded them. Then Black Dog King walked out, surrounded. However, he furrowed his brow, because in just a few days, the cat boss had grown much larger. His size was now almost the same. Before the transformation, dogs had been able to ease because of their size advantage. But now with equal size, cat's reflexes and agility, while Black Dog King was deep, the cat boss suddenly shouted and with an exaggerated posture, leapt into the air. With a flash of sharpness, a dog's neck was instantly snapped. The sudden attack from the caught Black Dog King off guard. He never expected the to be this fast, but there was no time to. After letting out a roar, he rushed forward. The two sides immediately engaged, and due to the cat boss's his forces were clearly stronger than. Though the fight was intense and hard to call, it was only a matter of. Meanwhile, in the warehouse, the Rat King and his subordinate, upon seeing the glowing egg, he couldn't take his eyes off it. The stronger the animal, the more it could sense the eggs. At that moment, a tempting voice seemed urging him to rush forward, but after taking a few steps, the Rat King suddenly bit his tongue, forcing himself to snap out of it. As he neared the dragon egg, a strong sense of danger surged. It urged him to quickly step, but after only a few steps, the Rat King suddenly bit his tongue, forcing himself to snap out of it, because as he approached the dragon egg, a strong sense of danger suddenly surged within him. This made the Rat King immediately. Meanwhile, inside the dragon egg, your strange behavior left the eggs. You had planned to use this opportunity to eliminate the Rat King, but as soon as you locked onto his aura, he detected something off. It seemed his strength was definitely above that of the Black Dog, and not by a small margin. At this point, the cunning Rat King they thought it was an easy task, but little did they know. Suddenly a voice shouted, "Drag!" A 6-star blaze erupted instantly. Orange-red flames spouted forth with terrifying heat. In the blink of an eye, they engulfed several rats that had didn't even have time to scream. They were completely consumed by this horrifying scene. Terrified all the rats present, their deep-seated fear genes for them to flee from this hellish place. But before they could another disaster struck. An overwhelming wave of energy descended, slamming onto their bodies. All the rats, including the Rat King, collapsed onto the ground with a thud. At this moment, the Rat King, and in disbelief, he asked who you were. But upon learning that you were the new leader of he remembered a few days ago when the Fierce Dogs gang had he had mocked it at the time. But now he understood. It was the master who had, and after witnessing your terrifying power, he realized there was no chance of victory. Although the Rat King had it was a warrior's strength versus a cultivator's. This was truly a disadvantage. So the Rat King fell back and collapsed, resigning to his fate and closing his eyes he closed his eyes in despair. However, you didn't kill him. Instead, you gave him two options. One was to die without a trace. The other was to submit to you. The Rat King, lying on the ground, without hesitation, this comical scene. almost left his subordinate. Was this really the ruthless rat? The reason you didn't kill him was because you realized that, aside from he was actually a decent talent. Due to the animal transfer, all communication devices had been cut off. The only news you could gather now was limited to this small area of this. As for the outside world, you had no idea what was going on. Since you had decided to pursue, you had to fully control the information. The Rat King and his subordinate were undoubtedly the best choice because of their small size. Rats could sneak into their strong adaptability allowed them to survive, and they were natural spies. To test the Rat King's loyalty, you asked him to show his sincerity. After hearing this, he then said he would kill the cat as proof of his loyalty. Upon seeing your approval, the Rat King turned and Meanwhile, at the Dragon Dynasty's gate, the cat boss had lost all forgetting about the plan to steal. They only needed to delay time. There was no need to fight, but now as the fight raged on, the cat boss was consumed by one thought: to crush the Dragon Dynasty and then go after those filthy rats. However, at this moment, they no longer cared about seeing that Dragon Dynasty was about. The only thought in the cat boss's mind was to crush the opponent, then go wipe out those filthy rats. However, at this moment, a fast-moving black shadow in just moments, it reached the center of the battle. When it stopped, the cats finally saw clearly. It was a rat the size of a dog. This sudden turn of events left all the animals stunned. Had this rat become a spirit? How did it get so big? The cat boss immediately recognized it, as though he didn't know how it got so. There was no time to ask. He now just wanted to join forces with it and destroy these. But before the cat boss could speak, a scream suddenly rang out. It was the Rat King. Standing without any warning, he launched an attack. His sharp teeth instantly pierced through the cat boss. After a moment, the Rat King released his grip, then dragged the corpse away. With the cat boss's death, Black Dog King became the strongest. Under his command, the cats were quickly subdued. Meanwhile, you, waiting in the warehouse, were confident in letting because in the past few days, when you had figured out a new use for example, you could seal inside your good brother Wang Chili's body. As soon as he thought about, he could instantly activate it. But since he didn't have dragon blood, using the Thunder Shield would come at a heavy. As for Dragon's Fury, you found an even more. As long as you locked onto a target's aura, Dragon's Fury would automatically track. There was no way to escape. Earlier in the warehouse, you had already locked. If he didn't return in 3 minutes, or if you sensed he was about to leave, you would immediately release But just then, however, at this moment, the warehouse door was forcefully slammed. The Rat King was dragging the cat bosses and marched straight in. After receiving your approval, his body shrank down and returned to its original size. Then he knelt before you. It turns out, to complete he had unleashed all the enormous transformation. Even the Rat King struck, but before he could catch his breath, a loud dragon's roar suddenly exploded in his mind. He felt darkness in front of his eye and lost consciousness. It turned out you had activated. After waiting in the warehouse for nearly 10. The Rat King slowly woke up, but his eyes were bloodshot and as if he had gone through something terrible. The Dragon Soul contract you released was a type of slave contract. After completing the contract, the powerful dragon soul leaves an indelible in the deepest part of the and ordinary beings' souls are quite fragile. Plus, rats are very timid. The Rat King, who had just experienced, naturally suffered quite a bit. But at this moment, you could clearly feel a mysterious connection between you. It was a sense of control over his life, and with the death of the cat boss, and the battle was finally over. Now Haishi City was almost completely under your control. Soon night arrived. You gathered all the leaders of to discuss the next step. That was, you still needed more evolution, so the forces needed to expand. But before that, you had to deal with the hidden dangers in although now, aside from them, other forces were insignificant. It was still safer to have control. Otherwise, if left unchecked, they could cause trouble any day. You wouldn't want any issues arising Therefore, Black Dog King was as for the Rat King, he was to investigate the situation. Since you needed these guys to do the job, naturally, they had to be given some So, you decided to split today's collected evolution, giving both of them were excited and hurriedly. But just then, the Rat King proposed that since we just calling you the boss, a title must have some authority too. The Rat King then paused for a moment and seemed to come up with a good idea. Since you are the Dragon Egg, and our force is called the Dragon, how about we all start calling you the Sovereign? But you didn't care much about the title. When you named the organization Dragon Nest, however, since they are happy to, you didn't mind much? Even the most majestic title doesn't matter. The next morning, Black Dog King gathered along and headed towards the other animal force. In just 2 short days, those who surrendered and those who disappeared. As for the Rat King, the day after the meeting, he led his subordinates to leave, heading to other cities to gather. A month passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, inside, you had been staring at your system interface, bored. For the entire month, you spent every day to accelerate the incubation process. From the original 9,880, but you still weren't satisfied with this speed because in this short month, several strange things have happened. Apart from the Rat King, there have been more than 10 mutations. Some of them have gained the ability to instantly increase their power by dozens. Others have gained the ability to break their speed limits. Some have developed powerful claws on their that can easily tear through a wall. These animals seem to have suddenly mutated, gaining strength that defies the laws of nature. You still haven't figured out the exact cause of these mutations. As it turns out, among them, more than half are members of the dragon. Even Black Dog King is among them. With the help of him and the others, they were able to subdue the mutated beast. But just like the Rat King, they too need to when using their abilities, making it unsustainable for. As you were deep in thought, a sharp voice suddenly interrupted you. From the sound, it was clearly the Rat King who had been gone. His size had increased again, indicating that he had reached. Through his account, you learned about the situation in Bohai City was the place where you and CONQUEROR, you had driven to the mountains to find a studio, and later CONQUEROR turned into an egg. After several days, you arrived at Bohai City. Returning to Bohai City was at this time, the city had been and they had all reached maturity. Their leader was a creature called the Golden Lion King. In fact, he was just a cougar who had gained special abilities. However, the Rat King said the opponent's ability was and even he almost got discovered while in. But this only piqued your. After all, Bohai City was the place where you lived for more than, and it's not that far from Bohai City. It would be good to go back and. So that night, you gathered the leaders and announced your plan to leave. As for Bohai City, it will be managed by Black Dog King, and the evolution points collected will temporarily be kept. When you return, they will all be. After all, after the mutated animals, you didn't hesitate to brand them all with the Dragon Soul contract. This naturally included Black Dog King, so as long as the Dragon Soul contract, they wouldn't dare to have any ideas. The next day, on a road outside Bohai City, CONQUEROR was slowly carrying you along the. After more than a month, this quirky combination of yours was setting out on a new journey, but the wilderness had changed quite a bit. The originally flat and straight was now gradually covered with vines. At this rate, in a few decades, the cities left behind would be completely overtaken. Though traces of various animals, it was still rare to see anyone walking on the unless they were fierce wild beasts. To reach Bohai, this road was the closest. No matter what trouble you encounter, you would have to bear it. Before leaving this time, Black Dog King had planned to lead half the members to escort you. But after considering it, you decisively because with your current strength, you didn't fear the wild animals at all, and you didn't need to lift a finger. With CONQUEROR, this guy was enough to handle. Though it was a bit slow, you weren't in a rush. You could consider it a training session for CONQUEROR.